Hello dear subscribers. Today we are going to discuss a very important topic. So we're going to discuss the biblical commandments versus the Catholic commandments. And I believe this is one of the most important videos that I'll ever make, if not the most important. So let's get started. So Mark chapter 7 verses 6 to 9, Jesus says, Jesus answered them, "How right Isaiah was when he prophesied about you. You are hypocrites, just as he wrote. These people, says God, honor me with their words, but their heart is really far away from me. It is no use for them to worship me, because they teach human rules as though they were my laws. You put aside God's command and obey human teachings." And Jesus continued, "You have a clever way of rejecting God's law in order to uphold your own teaching." And 1 John chapter 5 verse 3 says, "For this is the love of God, that we keep his commandments, and his commandments are not grievous." And 2 John chapter 1 verse 6 says, "And this is love, that we walk after his commandments. That is, the commandment that as ye have heard from the beginning, ye shall walk in it." Which of these two sets of commandments are you keeping? You. I'm talking to you. Which one are you keeping? Are you keeping the one on the left-hand side, or are you keeping the one on the right-hand side? So let's go through them. So the biblical commandments. First commandment, Exodus, from Exodus chapter 20, verse 2 and 3. "I am the Lord thy God, which have brought thee out of the land of Egypt, out of the house of bondage. Thou shalt have no other gods before me." And on the right, the Catholic first commandment, "I am the Lord thy God, thou shalt have no strange gods before me." So far so good. Those are the same. Now, the trouble begins in the second commandment. The biblical second commandment says, "You shall not make for yourself an idol in the form," an idol, or in the King James Version, "Thou shalt not make unto thyself any graven image, in the form of anything in heaven above, or on the earth beneath, or in the waters below. You shall not bow down to them or worship them, for I, the Lord your God, am a jealous God, punishing the children for the sin of the fathers to the third and fourth generation of those who hate me, but showing love to 1,000 generations of those who love me and keep my commandments." And what did the Catholics do with the second commandment? Oh, well, they had to delete it. They know better than God. They had to delete it. Okay, and we're going to talk about the consequences of adding or subtracting to the word of God. We will be doing that pretty soon. Alright, it was convenient for Catholicism to make away with the second commandment completely in order to accommodate their rampant idolatry practices. So let's go to the other commandments. The third commandment here says, in the biblical commandment on the left-hand side, Exodus chapter 20, "Thou shalt not take the name of the Lord thy God in vain, for the Lord will not hold him guiltless that taketh his name in vain." And the third biblical commandment is the second Catholic commandment, "Thou shalt not take the name of the Lord thy God in vain." Fourth commandment, biblical, remember the Sabbath day to keep it holy. But the fourth biblical commandment is the third Catholic commandment, remember to keep holy the Sabbath day. The fifth biblical commandment, "Honor thy father and thy mother, that thy days may belong upon the land which the Lord thy God giveth thee." So the fifth biblical commandment becomes the fourth Catholic commandment, "Honor thy father and thy mother." The sixth biblical commandment, "Thou shalt not kill," becomes the fifth Catholic commandment, "Thou shalt not kill." The 7th biblical commandment, thou shalt not commit adultery, becomes the 6th Catholic commandment, thou shalt not commit adultery. The 80th biblical commandment, thou shalt not steal, becomes the 7th in the Catholic commandments. The 9th biblical commandment, thou shalt not bear false witness against thy neighbor, becomes the 80th Catholic commandment. Now, in order to, in the Catholic commandments they are one commandment short. So, they had to split the 10th commandment as follows. So, the 10th biblical commandment reads, thou shalt not covet thy neighbor's house, thou shalt not covet thy neighbor's wife, nor his manservant, nor his maidservant, nor his ox, nor his ass, nor anything that is thy neighbor's. And so the Catholics took the 10th commandment and they split it into the 9th and the 10th commandment. And so therefore the 10th commandment is basically repeating what the 9th is saying. Thou shalt not covet thy neighbor's wife. And the 10th Catholic commandment says, thou shalt not covet thy neighbor's goods. As a child, I remember that I always told myself, why is this 9th and 10th commandment practically the same? I still was an unborn Christian. Deuteronomy 4 verse 2 says, ye shall not add unto the word which I command you, neither shall ye diminish aught from it, that ye may keep the commandments of the Lord your God, which I command you. Now, very importantly, Revelation chapter 22 says, for I testify unto every man that heareth the words of the prophecy of this book being the Bible. If any man shall add unto these things, God shall add unto him the plagues that are written in this book. And if any man shall take away from the words of the book of this prophecy, God shall take away his part out of the book of life, and out of the holy city, and from the things which are written in this book. So, anybody taking pleasure in believing a lie, all right, even in believing about these false Marian apparitions, all right, and in believing and in insisting in adhering to the Catholic commandments rather than the biblical commandments, you should read out this verse to them. We're going to read from 2 Thessalonians chapter 1, and we're going to, 2 Thessalonians chapter 2, verse 9 to 11. The coming of the lawless one is according to the working of Satan, with all power, signs, and lying wonders, and with all unrighteousness, deception among those who perish, because they did not receive the love of the truth, that they might be saved. And for this reason God will send them strong delusion, that they should believe the lie. A strong delusion, that's what it is. 1.2 billion Catholics deceived into believing the lie. The lie. Alright? That all these Marian apparitions, alright, that Mary is coming back to and fro. She's going and she's visiting many countries. She must be the tourist of the year. Alright? And the strong delusion that they insist on adhering to the Catholic commandments rather than to the biblical God's commandments. I urge you all to show these two sets of commandments to those who insist on believing the lie. God bless you all. Good day.